Tippy time, my damies, Tuckhead here and welcome back to the channel. Today's a really big one, guys. Trace rifles have long been one of the greatest utility tools inside Destiny 2, yet hardly everyone gives them the time of day. We've got 11 of them inside Destiny 2, and each of them have a very unique speciality. We're going to break them each down. Make sure to stick around till the end for our damage tests. We've also got 5 Warlock builds for you to help maximize their playstyle. I'll make sure to leave a dim link for all of them in the description below. And I really appreciate it if you could like this video, as I put a lot of hours into making this one. Inside Season 21, our Trace Rifles can overload, so it's a really good season to get into them. And we got the Cenotaph Mask. Now, I know this is about as pretty as some lawn droppings, but what it does is really quite special. It steadily reloads equipped Trace Rifles magazines from reserves, pretty much just like our Actium War Rig for our auto rifles and our LMGs. This does that just for our Trace Rifles. It does so at 4 rounds a second, eliminating the need to ever reload. This will allow us to bounce around from target to target during time-sensitive assaults. Trace Rifles generally have quite large mags, allowing us to hold down that trigger to eliminate our miners, mages and ultras without having to back off, reload and reposition. Its second perk is a safer version of the Aeons, as by damaging a vehicle, boss or champion with a Trace Rifle matching your subclass, it marks it as a priority target. It's that similar X shape, that of the Tether or the Foe Tracer, and this stays active for 10 seconds after it was last hit. And it will gift your ally heavy ammo for those who destroy the target. Now once the target has been targeted, shall I say, you cannot apply this until the first has fallen or that 10 seconds is up. Our Trace Rifles work excellently for mechanic driven encounters like in the Spire, and with seemingly endless range it makes using Trace Rifles very versatile. Our first build will be Stasis, and we're going to require the Grim Harvest to create frozen shards. Whisper of Conduction will track those shards to us, and Whisper of Fishes will increase the size and shatter of our explosions. Stasis build for a Stasis Trace, and our Agers Scepter is one hell of a trace. Out of all 11 of our Trace Rifles, this one has the best DPS, and will go toe to toe with the strongest special weapons in the game. It also has the Subsistence perk to feed us back ammo on kills to keep us topped up for longer, and its intrinsic trait is called Agers Call. Our final blows with this weapon generate slowing burst around the defeated target. This works excellently to stall hordes of enemies as they approach us. With a second kill you can turn this slow into a freeze. If you want to, you can run the Ice Flare Bolts aspect, so once you get a shatter kill, these ice flares can chain from foe to foe to foe, making for excellent ad control. Every man and their dog has an Osmiomancy build for their Warlock. However, the Stasis Warlock is so much more than just the ice turrets. And the Scepter's Catalyst is also something very different too. You long press reload. This will drain your super energy, overflowing the magazine and empowering the beam with a bonus to its weapon damage. This beam also has the ability to slow and freeze and shatter the target. This is active either until the magazine runs out or your super energy bar runs out. And a nice bonus, we can also turn this off again by repressing that reload. This will help save your super energy after you've eliminated your major threats. What's nice here about this Agers, as even without the seasonal mod, we have the ability to delete overload champs and unstops alike. By using Whisper of Conduction together with Elemental Charge and some Stasis Surge mods, we can have those icy crystals we create zoom towards us, feed us an armor charge and feed us a Stasis Surge for bonus damage. This is extremely practical and makes for no fuss slaying. We won't have to zig and zag around the map like a damn cat chasing a butterfly. That butterfly comes straight to our net. Our Stasis builds use the Elemental Charge mod better than any other subclass, but in my opinion nothing does it better than a Warlock with an Agers Scepter. Additionally, a weapon perk to look out for that works wonders with this build is Collective Action, and it's particularly lovely on the Ghost of the Deep Cold Comfort rocket launcher. Now this Stasis combo is frickin' nuts, but let's be honest, about 60% of the time you're probably going to be on your solar Warlock. The well is a vital part of our fire team. Almost every raid we have in Destiny 2 requires one, whether it's to give you that bonus damage to stay in the fight, or just to stay in the fight long enough to finish the fight. With heat rises, we'll have access to easy melee regeneration. Use whatever melee you want, they both scorch. And Phoenix Dive will give us access to more Scorch so we can ignite, and Restoration will give us 60 HP a second as everything burns around us. We have 3 solo options when it comes to our Trace Rifle selection, but the Prometheus Lens is still definitely the hot pick here. Its perk, Prismatic Inferno, fires a solar beam that creates a field of heat energy that grows as the weapon is fired. This trace is nice and spicy, because sustained damage actually applies Scorch to the target. So, paired up with a near infinite melee spam and Phoenix Dive, we can float like an angel above whilst we create hell down below. Ember Torches will give us Radiance. Our solar subclasses are generally the best suited to deal with barriers and immunity shields. Ember of Solace, Imperium, and Ashes. These will allow us to chain our restoration and radiant buffs on our weapon kills and ability kills. To get this loop, we consume our grenade to activate heat rises, melee to activate radiant, and then just slay away. This can push our radiant and restoration out to 12 seconds every time we get a kill, and push that heat rises out to 30 seconds. As long as there are solar kills to get, we'll be unstoppable. Last season, the Prom Lens Catalyst also got incandescent, so now we'll be slashing flames all over the shop. It's also got a subsistence style trait built into it, so once paired with that canoe we call a helmet, we won't ever need to reload whilst we float around in the sky. Our first legendary option is the Retraced path with incandescent. This plays just like the Prometheus Lens does, as you might sometimes need to run another exotic like the Tractor Cannon or the Arbalist. In those situations, this will still give you that pyro fantasy. However, being that we've set it up for burning, it won't do the best single target damage that is compared to the Prometheus Lens. For that, we turn to the only trace rifle with vorpal weapon, the Acasia's Dejection. But I've been loving its level of accuracy for things like destroying moths and like the little harpy eyes in the Spire's second encounter. Now our Voidlock's Nova may still be a little underwhelming, but its kit is anything but. We've got plenty of weakens, Devour for health generation, volatile, overshields, and endless grenades. We've also got 3 Void Trace Rifles to pick from, but we're going to be beginning with the most powerful, the Wavesplitter. This was very hot inside Season 20, but it's still plenty strong. Its trait is called Harmonic Laser. This laser damage has 3 power setting levels that oscillate while the trigger is held down. Effectively, this is target lock, making it the 3rd strongest of our trace rifles. Its trait is called Supercharged Battery. When we collect an orb of power, we will instantly be granted the maximum power for 10 seconds. This is so strong, in fact, it's actually quite close to things like our Riptide and Cartesian. And with Sustained Fire in this mode, we can also suppress our targets. For your aspects, I'd like to suggest using Child of the Old Gods and Feed the Void. The Child of the Old Gods is going to feed us Weaken, which will in turn lead into our artifact, and is also great at feeding us plenty of grenade energy. Feed the Void will allow us to restore our health. Kills will extend Devour, giving us tons of longevity, and this will also give us plenty of grenade energy. This is vital for our Voidlock, as there's plenty we can do with them. Pick a grenade of your choice, equip Undermining and Instability. This will make our grenades debuff for 20% better damage, and Instability will give you 12 seconds of volatile rounds. Volatile works really nicely on our trace rifles, as we have that constant contact with our target, making for easy eruptions. And if you use a low cooldown grenade like the magnetic grenade, you can have a grenade every 10 odd seconds to keep you with volatile full time. Our only legendary Void Trace Rifle is the Hollow Denial. It's acquired through the Castellan event on the Leviathan. We can craft this puppy. I've gone for lead for gold, as most trifle builds out there are double special builds. And Repulsor Brace will feed us overshields on our Void debuff targets. and essentially every target with this build is a void debuffed, so endless overshields. My favourite void trace, however, is the Ruinous effigy. Our void hunter has a great build for this. I'll make sure to leave a link at the end of this video, but our voidlock gets to play this a lot more aggressively. Its trait is called transmutation. Final blows with this weapon collapse the victims into a void transmutation sphere. We can stockpile these spheres next to us, so when we're ready to use them, we can go make a play with them. When we are, just chuck on your Jordans and go get some air. Its trait is called evolution, and this will give us 3 different ways we can use it. The first of which is a light attack, like a melee attack. This too can work with our volatile rounds, and is as much fun as it is powerful and practical. These spheres are not just for you either. Your teammates are always happy when they come across one lying around on the floor. There will be tons of them around, so don't feel the need to use them all. I generally try and hold onto one as long as possible to make use of its shield and block. Its second attack is a heavy attack. This also comes with suppress, so this can tie into our void kit to make things like our void breaches and our overshields. But I love dunking on overload champs. Suppression is undoubtedly one of the least used methods for stunning overloads, but it is still very effective nonetheless. But it's probably the guard and drain that are the most powerful asset. We're going to hold down block. This will make us a walking bubble. We can use this in order to block enemies' fire, and when we get enemies inside our bubble, it acts a little bit like a tether, weakening them. If we have volatile rounds active, this effect will also take fruit as they implode on themselves. And with the catalyst, after we've drained an enemy with our bubble tether, our Jordan Dunk is considerably stronger. Our artifact has Into the Breach, Protective Breach, and Supernova. So, when we defeat a void debuff target, this creates a void breach. Our build is all debuff, so we'll be making tons of breaches. This of course will feed us tons of ripped energy, but now also overshields. And will set us up on our next shot with Supernova, so we can continue that cycle with more weakening. But this season's greatest commodity is surely the Arc subclass. Our weapons are strong, our abilities are strong, and our supers are even stronger. This is all thanks to our seasonal artifact, so my fragments are going to play a little bit different to the way they normally would. We've changed our fragments around so they're going to target our gunplay a little bit more, and more importantly, our trace rifle play. First up, we're going to run Spark of Beacons. This will make our arc special weapons create a blinding explosion. Spark of Brilliance chains blinded targets into more blinded targets. Ions creates traces on jolt kills, and Discharge is going to feed us more traces again on weapon kills. Our usual artifact perks, Lightning Strikes twice, Shock and Awe, Electric Armor, Thunderous Retort, and amped up with cheaper arc mods and melee mods. These will make any arc build great, but this one is all about our trace rifles, and again we have 3 options to choose from. First up to bat is the Coldheart. This is the OG Destiny 2 exotic. It feels really explosive inside Season 21 and actually sits in second place for DPS, doing similar damage to our most powerful fusion rifles. Its intrinsic trait is Cold Fusion, and just like the Wavesplitter, it deals more damage the longer it remains on a target. Kinda like that target lock perk, it's good, good, good. Longest Winter, this will steadily feed us Ionic Traces purely by applying damage. This doesn't need to be on a single target, as long as the damage is continuous, it'll feed you those Ionic Traces. Sadly, the Catalyst is just better stats, but honestly it's strong enough already. Our legendary option is the Path of Least Resistance. This is one of my go-tos in a lot of content. It'll work well against overloads in future seasons, as it can roll with Volt Shot. Currently this season, everything arc jolts, but it does so at a standard ×1 jolt. This is around 7,000 damage, but the Path of Least Resistance jolts closer to 12,000 per jolt. So even in Season 21, it's a superior option. It comes with the Omnilon Dynamic Fluid trait that will increase its reload speed, and stats for all, which I run enhanced. And herein lies the beauty. Volt Shot hits multiple targets with ease, allowing us to increase our range, handling, and stability, but most importantly the reloads. So this way we can constantly be proccing Volt Shot time and time again. And last but by no means least, the Divinity. This works brilliantly to debuff whilst running gunning. I'm honestly surprised though, as when it got that debuff nerf from 30 down to 15%, it actually got a buff in its outright damage as well. So now we actually have to be careful when we're debuffing a target or marking a target, we don't accidentally kill that target, because we want our teammates to be getting the heavy ammo from it. Despite its debuff nerf, there are still some bosses that Divinity does work well on. Deepstone Crypt is a really great example of this, particularly being that rockets are the meta for DPS currently. We can't really get close enough to tractor cannon that thing with all the debris swirling around, so yeah, definitely Div the way to go here. And that Dutch clog we call a helmet really is perfect here for the Divinity, as you'll never have to reload whilst applying the debuff. We hold down that trigger to get that dip bubble up. After that you just pulse fire. Now with that slower fire rate, it's reloading your ammo as fast as you're spending it. The Cenotaph plays as a support role, so if you're not running a dib in raids, tractor cannon is probably going to be your heavy weapon option. Still using whatever trace you want to kill with to eliminate your miners and mages and threats in the immediate vicinity. I'll often run it with a double special build, so pick your favorite kinetic slot special. Mine has been the Deliverance. This is the Vow Fusion and it can roll with bait and switch. This gives us a weapon rotation that will allow us to debuff for our team whilst also getting some damage dealt for ourselves as well. A quick reminder before we head on to my favorite builds, hit that thumbs up, it really does help me out. Our Strand has remarkable debuffs, AoE, boss damage and ability spam. Basically it's the complete package and it's all thanks to the navigator. This Strand trace rifle is acquired through RNG, unfortunately, upon completing the Ghost of the Deep dungeon, and it's got a lot of tools at its disposal. Its intrinsic trait is called Protective Weave. When we fire this weapon at an ally, it grants Woven Mail to both you and your ally. Woven Mail is easily the strongest attribute in the Strand kit. Both the Titan and the Hunter have great exotics for easy access to it, and now our Warlock does too. Also there is currently a bug, I believe, with this trace. It's also granting us Woven Mail when we shoot an enemy. This isn't stated anywhere on the weapon, but I like it a lot. Fingers crossed Bungie had their hands full with their whole server issues and let us keep this just that little bit longer. Its second trait is Weft Cutter. As if Woven Mail wasn't enough, this trace rifle can also apply Sever to our targets when dealing sustained damage. So now we tank more damage as they do less. In the artifact we also have Strand Soldier and Improved Unraveling. This will grant us Strand Weapons Unraveling rounds whenever we have Woven Mail, and thanks to the glitch we can self-proc this just with sustained fire on our foes. And Improved Unraveling makes these particles stronger. Conductive Cosmic Needle will debuff, making our Void and Arc abilities much stronger. But as great as all this already is, this pales in comparison to what the Warlock itself can do with this catalyst. We use the special reload. By that we hold down the reload just that little bit longer and it'll activate one round. We fire it to create a grapple tangle at the targeted point. This is similar to that of the Hunter's aspect. It lasts for 30 seconds, but as long as we keep using it, it's ours to keep. So of course we're using the grapple, and it's Mindspun Invocation that makes this trace rifle work best on our Warlock. As every time we grapple melee something, we spawn 3 Threadlings. Now these Threadlings spawn regardless if it's a kill or an injury, allowing us to endlessly create swarms of Threadlings. To enhance this playstyle, I run Threat of Generation, Evolution and Warding. Now Threat of Generation isn't strictly necessary, but I like to have access to my grapple when I want to use it, as we don't just use a grapple as a damage perk, we also use it as a movement tool. Evolution is going to make your Threadlings travel farther and deal more damage. Now Threadlings make everything easy mode up to a certain point. Anything above master level, they're going to start feeling a little bit weaker, but with an infinite source of these Threadlings, they can't hold out for long. Warding is going to feed us Woven Mail on orb pickups, I know the trace rifle feeds us woven mail by shooting virtually anything, but when we start Tarzaning across the map it gets a little bit Pringles, and I honestly feel it a little bit hard to stop. And this build will make a minimum of 2 orbs on our grapple melee kills, so we'll never be without woven mail. Now next I wanted to gauge our trace rifles DPS, and whilst our trace rifles vary, some work like primaries, some work more like specials, it's good to know where they stack up. Our retraced path works more like a primary, only dealing 360,000 in this damage phase. We're not using any surges, no debuffs or buffs outside of the well to keep us alive. Sadly, the navigator underperformed in my opinion, especially for an exotic. I'd be happy with like an 18 to 20% damage buff on this, as it only pulled out 465,000. The Hollow Denial performed about where I expected. All void tests will be done without using volatile rounds, and it got 471,000. The path of least resistance is generally used against miners, mages and champs. I did kill one enemy at the start of this damage phase with 10 seconds of jolt damage. This done 494,000. The Prometheus Lens does good against miners and mages, but by itself doesn't push out enough scorch to really trigger mass ignitions, only dealing 506,000. The dejection does a little bit better, but it does have warp weapon on it, and it's one of the few legendary traces I tried with boss spec on it, and this done 525,000. The Ruinous honestly surprised me. With all its attributes, with its transmutation orb, I was surprised to see it get 578,000, and then I got double shocked with the Divinity. This does have a larger mag, so no reloads also. Its damage buff definitely bore more fruit with 580,000. But the next 3 jump up in a massive way. The Wavesplitter has that target lock feature. It also is able to suppress with Echo of Domineering reloading it, so it done 785,000. Then we have the Coldheart with that target lock feature as well. For a reference, our Vorpal Cartesian does 880,000 in the same damage test window. Coldheart does 800,000. But not surprisingly, the Agers Scepter was the best, as we got those shatter bonuses from our subclass, beating out all the fusion rifles for 962,000 damage. Now DPS isn't everything, but it's still a very important slice of the pie. Some builds like to burn things like my P does, others might make you feel like an all-star in some gothic version of Space Jam, others shatter and some blind. There are so many fun and powerful builds that our trace rifles give us, and I honestly feel it's a shame that not more of you out there are using them. I'll leave my full builds including the mods for each of the 5 Warlock subclasses in the description below. Hopefully I've inspired you to give at least one of them a crack, or at least a trace rifle a go. Please leave us a comment and question if you got any feedback. I'll try and get to it when I can. Love to hear from you, and until next time, tippy time my damies, what a tie.